Hi, it's Dr. Parikh, and we're talking now about revising and polishing your draft. And I've talked a little bit about this before, and there's a reading you'll do this week from the last page of the APA paper guide, and this kind of gives you some ideas. One way you can work to make sure that your draft is clear is to try to go through and kind of read your article the way you would have read your paper the way you read your articles. So go through, try to figure out the key words, try to write key ideas in the margins and see if you can come up with an outline. And then when you've done that, compare it to what you meant the outline to be. See if you hit the mark or not. And check if there's anything like, oh, I meant to say this and I didn't. You also want to look at each paragraph. You want to make sure that each paragraph makes sense as a paragraph, that it has a topic sentence that is broad and it covers the whole main point. Remember, someone should be able to just read the topic sentences of your paper and get a pretty good idea what your argument is. They wouldn't know the specific details and supports, but they would know the direction of your argument. Make sure that each paragraph, each topic sentence then is supported by several points, and you can do sort of a final check to make sure you have at least 2 citations for each paragraph, citations of different articles, and at least 3 different articles being cited for each theme. And that's sort of it's a way I can count to try to see if you're integrating. You could still have those all just stacked and not really playing with each other. You could be not saying how they relate to each other or what they might mean taken together, but it's at least a start to integration. Let's see. And again, this is going to seem really repetitive to you because you're familiar with it. But for a reader, it's incredibly helpful. And that's one of the reasons I have you do so much peer review. Make sure at this point, some of these sections should be nice and stale for you, which is good. I've talked before about how sometimes when you're in a crunch, the best you can do is set it aside for a couple hours, maybe work on something else in between. But now a lot of this stuff you haven't looked at in a week or two. So you can take really fresh eyes to it. I find it essential to print out my paper at some point to do final editing. I just read it differently when it's on paper. I read it more slowly. I look at each word more. When it's on a screen, it just kind of floats away at some point for me. It's also really helpful to read each sentence out loud. And if you find yourself going too fast and not really paying attention, you can even go backwards. You can start at the end and read each sentence one at a time backwards. So I would first read, it seems repetitive because you already know what you're going to say, but trust me, it's what works for a naive reader. Topic sentence, body of paragraph, summary, transition sentence. That's not actually a full sentence, but again, this isn't meant to be academic writing. It's meant to be sort of a helpful, casual guide. But you would go backwards one sentence at a time, and it helps you think about each sentence individually. Just like how when you were doing the article sort with the strips of paper, I told you to cut each article apart and then mix them up so that you would think of each one not as part of this article, but as its own statement. So you can read it out loud. Definitely ask someone else to read it. We have peer review built in. You can also, by now, you know your reading group members pretty well. So you could talk with them about maybe doing a paper exchange. And especially if you're both on campus at least part of the week, maybe even meeting up in person to do it. Anybody can read your paper and tell you when they got confused. They do not have to be specialists in psychology. They don't have to be in this class. They don't even have to be amazing writers. They just need to tell you when they got confused. And especially if you can do that with a few different people, you'll get a really good sense of what you need to do. You're tired. You've been working on this paper for a long time. You've been working on it twice as fast as a usual semester. And it's important to give yourself concrete things to do, like a checklist, so that you keep doing it, because it's really easy to say it's good enough. And I will be less than thrilled with that, especially when it comes to your revision plan, which I expect to see that the things that you actually say you're going to do, you did. So the revision plan is a good way for you to sort of go through and take stock of what needs to be done and make a list. And it can be helpful to estimate how much time each of those is going to take so that you can say, all right, I think I'm going to need about 5 hours or 10 hours to do the final edits on my paper. And then you can start looking at your week and start scheduling, okay, when are these hours going to come from? Because in college, hours are precious. And unscheduled time can slip away so quickly. So you need to make sure that it's a priority and that you know what you're going to do. And you need to find ways to make yourself work efficiently too. I find when I'm really struggling with something, I set timers and I say, okay, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes to do this task, and whatever's not done, just needs to get finished up at the end. I do this when I'm grading papers, actually, because I could, for one, I can get really distractible around paper 5 or 10. And so I'll go online a lot for, little minutes here and there and not really read much. Or I'll get too detailed on grading one paper and do something that's completely unrealistic based on the amount of work I need to do and how much time I have. So remember, your final paper isn't going to be perfect, but I do expect it to be pretty polished. You are strongly encouraged to make good use of the time you spend with your tutor. And you can even go more than the 2 times that I require. I push you to go twice, partly so that you get 2 experiences in case one isn't that great, so that you get a sense that, okay, tutoring can be helpful, even if even if once in a while you don't have a great experience. But you can go more than that, and I hope that a lot of these revision tools that you're using, just like the drafting and outlining, I hope that although you probably won't do it quite as structured as this paper was in the future, I hope that it's something that you can carry forward and use to be helpful in the future too. Thanks. Bye.